Thanks to all the hardworking drivers across the U.S. from the Allen Len Company.
I think the truck parking club on this deal needs to retract all these things. They need to get rid of all this clickbait bullshit that they had out there on Facebook and other social media platforms. Clean it up.
And welcome to Trucking with OIDA. I'm Scott Thompson.
And I'm Ashley Blackbird.
Just heard from Louis Pugh there, Executive Vice President of OIDA.
Fired up.
Calling out the Truck Parking Club, which we did last week. We talked about that report that claimed there is no truck parking shortage. There is.
Yes.
We're going to hear from Louis here in a little bit, along with Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine, who's been covering this story extensively.
Yes. We're also going to hear from Natasha Cruz Sanchez, an OOIDA member. I talked to her a few months ago. She's a truck driver, started a coffee company. We're not talking to her about that today. She recently filed a petition to establish English proficiency as a formal endorsement. We're going to find out about that.
Looking forward to it. In the meantime, let's turn to Louis Pugh and Tyson Fisher, who have more than a few thoughts about that Truck Parking Club study on the truck parking crisis. And, I suppose we can start by asking a very blunt question. Is there a truck parking shortage, Tyson and Louis?
Go.
Go.
Oh, are we recording?
Yeah.
Or is
Yes,
this the thing we're doing? Because you would think that's a rhetorical question, right?
You would think it's a rhetorical question.
One would think, because, there absolutely is. It's almost as ridiculous as the driver shortage conversation. It's like, why are we having this conversation in 2025? I mean, so yes, there is absolutely a parking shortage, yeah.
Louis? I know you're going to take the opposite stance.
No, I tend to agree with my counterpart here, or cohort, or whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
But yeah, Tyson's correct. We know this is something that OIDA has been battling for decades upon decades. I mean, the first time I ever went to Washington, D.C. as a board member, and I know I've said this before, was in like 2005 or 6. And what was it for? Parking issues in the state of Virginia and parking. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a parking shortage. We can see it if you take a road trip anywhere in this country and you drive after about 8 o'clock at night, you'll see trucks parked everywhere, and it's because they have nowhere to go. And unfortunately, there's places, there's a lot of places out there that they could park, but they're either not allowed or they can't have access to. There's many reasons why they can't be used. But yes, there is huge parking shortage.
This, it's almost like I don't know where to start with all this, because this report has stirred up a bunch of feelings, a bunch of confusion, and it just flies in the face of exactly what you're talking about, Louis. Any truck driver you talk to out there will acknowledge that they have at one point or on a daily basis have trouble finding truck parking. There is a truck parking shortage. We're in a truck parking crisis. That is what we know, which is why when this report came out, and I think we're going to talk about the way it's been presented as well, it has, again, stirred up so many different feelings because it flies in the face of what we know. Tyson, you've been covering this report from the beginning. You put out a great piece on landline.media, kind of taking whacks at different parts of it that don't quite compute with reality. Again, not knowing where to start here, just your initial reactions to the report, I guess, how are you trying to frame this as you look at everything that's coming out from Truck Parking Club?
I mean, it's so multi-layered that, where do you begin? I will say this, as far as the research goes, this was commissioned by Truck Parking Club, right? And the direction, as far as I can tell, was, find out how many parking spaces, private parking spaces that, truckers don't have access to. Find out how many there are. That's a nearly impossible task. So from the get-go, this researcher was tasked with something that's nearly impossible to determine. I mean, we just don't have that data. That data just does not exist. And so because of that, this researcher just had to find a way to come up with those numbers. And in the paper, he even says, there's a 25% uncertainty level, which is massive.
That's a big one.
That is a huge uncertainty level. For regular research, you're talking low single digits typically. So right out of the gate, he's like, hey, take this with a massive grain of salt. And so then from there, again, this researcher just did the best that he can do with the very limited data as far as, private spaces. And then we come up with this huge number of millions of parking spaces. Well, what that does not account for is, a whole lot of things, which is a lot of these are unsafe parking spaces, right? Or there are a variety of reasons by which these truckers cannot park there. We have been saying for how long to shippers to, open up your lots,
Oh, yeah, forever. That's common sense. Why not? Why does shippers, and I mean, I know when I was trucking, I liked to either be parked at my receiver, shipper, first and be first in line or whatever. And a lot do. I mean, credit to a lot, because there's a lot out there that do and try to make it available. But but yeah, I mean, and also you don't know where these spots that are listed in this study, are they even anywhere where there isn't? Because there are places in this country that there really isn't a need. Even though we have a shortage, there are places that have more capacity than what's needed. But I mean, not a lot, but they're still out there. And, I think what we need is, and what truckers are wanting, and from what we see from the millions of studies they've done before, you want stuff as close to where you have to load or unload,
Sure, yeah.
So mainly so you don't have to fight traffic in the morning trying to get somewhere.
Right, which is common sense.
So, so that's part of the issues right there, right? And throughout the study, several times, the researcher even he specifically mentions the shortage. He acknowledges that there is a truck parking shortage for sure. There's one part of the paper where he says, like, well, maybe not with all these other spaces, but for the most part, he acknowledged the existing problem here. The issue that really came was that the way that this research was presented. And so again, the Truck Parking Club was the one that commissioned the study. They paid for this study. And when they released it, they had this big, graphic on social media in bold print that said explicitly, there is no truck parking shortage.
Right.
That's a problem because, well, it's not true. But not only is that not true in the reality, but the research didn't really say that at all. In so many ways you can maybe extrapolate that from the research, but it never explicitly said there is no truck parking shortage, because it's not true. That study doesn't necessarily come to that conclusion. But for some reason, Truck Parking Club had to put that narrative out, whether it was for clickbait or whatever. It doesn't matter, because that is the narrative that they put out there. That is the way they represented the study, and that is a problem in and of itself. And so I think the trucking industry is, and absolutely should, take issue with the framing of this study as a no parking shortage narrative, because it's not true. And on top of not being true, it can be damaging to the decades worth of, advocacy and work at Capitol Hill that has been taking place.
And to take it one step farther, not only did they put the big headline out there, but then they put a description where they pulled certain things out of the study to back up, showing that it looks like there's no shortage.
Misrepresenting.
And now we can all say, and them as well, that if you read the study, then you can kind of get to what Tyson's saying. But it's a 30-some page study.
Who's reading the study?
Who's reading it? Nobody, people read summaries, people read, conclusions of these things. Not very many people, unless they're researcher folks like our great people in Foundation and our great landline people for stories, read these entire studies. They look at the conclusions that, whatever there's out there. And that's the really sad, unfortunate. Not only do you put this big clickbait post out there, but then you put all these things backing up what you're saying.
Well, then you have news outlets picking up that very thing and running with it. That's the other frustrating part.
It's a major problem in journalism in general, which is too many reporters do not actually read the friggin' study. They don't, and it's a major problem. They're looking at the summary, they're looking at the press releases, and those who do read the studies don't necessarily know how to read studies, I mean, I'll go ahead and I'll toot my own horn here. It's just like, with the foundation, the backing of the foundation and all that, we were able to actually read the study and analyze the study before we even reported on it. That's why we waited so long, because we saw some of these red flags. Like, wait. I see this press release, I see this post. It does not jive with what I am reading because I read the whole 32 pages or whatever it was. It's like these two things do not equal each other. They're not the same. And some of it contradicts each other. And so that's where these red flags started raising, and we started to say, wait a second, what's really going on here? And that kind of leads us to where we are today.
And to take that again farther, folks on Capitol Hill, they don't read studies either.
Right.
And I mean, we know that truck parking and, going back to what Tyson said, this is something that we've been working on for decades on Capitol Hill. OOIDA, other trucking organizations and folks, we've all been working trying to get some parking. And, truckers pay millions, if not billions, into the Highway Trust Fund and taxes on fuel, on tires, all these plates, all these things. That's money that's their money. That money some of that money needs to be going to parking. And I would say they don't mind giving money to cops to write you a ticket for not parking in a safe place or not taking a break when you. There's no reason that this money shouldn't. So this isn't like it's just handout welfare money. But to take it is bipartisan on the Hill. As we've known, it's gaining a lot of momentum on the Hill. But there's still lawmakers who don't want to either spend the money or don't think we need to spend the money or this needs to be done or something. And there's other people out there in private that don't want this, that's lobbying against this as well. Things like this are just what they need to ruin this on the Capitol. And, that's what you got, some low-level staffer who's trying to do research on 100 different issues for his lawmaker. And if it's something this lawmaker is against, such as truck parking, he finds this is like the goose that laid the golden egg for him. And I mean, that's what they're going to use, that headline and those descriptions. They're going to pull those out that you pulled out for them already. And I said, we don't need this. It said right in their thing, there's no need for government intervention. It just can all be taken care of the private sector. That's all some lawmaker who doesn't want to spend that money. That's all they need right there.
Yeah. Very clear that it, would be good for business. One thing, Tyson, I know you did in your article that I thought was interesting was comparing this to, tobacco companies back in the day doing studies themselves.
Yeah. Smoking's not that bad for you.
Good for you.
Fine.
Right. Well, it's not uncommon for a company or an industry to commission a study to its own interest, right? Inherently, it's not necessarily bad, but it should be, anytime that happens, you should be skeptical right off the bat. You should be skeptical and find out, what's the angle here, and then from there, look at the numbers and all that. So again, when private industry commissions a study, I mean, that is a small red flag right off the bat.
Consider the source.
Consider the source. Follow the money. All those tropes. I mean, and it's definitely true in this situation. And so I do think right here it does, comparing it to the tobacco companies of the past, I think it's apt here because it certainly wanted to come to a certain conclusion. Now, I'm not accusing the researcher of, fudging numbers to reach that conclusion. I'm certainly not suggesting that. However, at the very end of the paper, it says, well, all this can be solved through, certain private sector companies like Truck Parking Club, right. And then it gives truck parking clubs, contact information. It's little stuff like that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but in the world of research and then, conflicts of interest, it is a problem, and so it is kind of worth noting. But again, when you just look at the numbers themselves and you dissect the data, all of that kind of comes into reality. It's like, yes, some of these numbers are they should be questioned, and that's what we're doing right now. We're just questioning it. We're questioning the methodology, which is not publicly available, by the way. It's proprietary information. So,
which is understandable. We should, in all fairness,
understandable.
However, when you have these questions,
we want to be able to replicate the data if possible. And again, I get the proprietary nature of it, so it's not extreme criticism on my part. But when we have these questions, we have to kind of bring that up. It's like, how do we get to these numbers? But again, you look at the research, it still doesn't say anything about the no existence of a parking shortage. That is a narrative that's being painted by the person who commissioned it.
Can we explore a little more this idea of the damage that this can cause? Because I can see people out there thinking, what's the big deal? We're putting this thing out. We're obviously trying to, get some business in, et cetera, et cetera. Lou, you kind of talked about on Capitol Hill the damage that can be done, and also the tobacco company parallel. I see parallels here, and somebody brought it up earlier, to the driver shortage narrative. And again, considering the source there. And we saw how quickly that took off and spread like a wildfire throughout Capitol Hill, to where lawmakers were repeating, about this quote unquote driver shortage time and time again. And I think we're finally getting to a point now where maybe that's sort of being pushed back. But to your point, Louis, this has the potential for, kind of spreading as well, and then causing issues down the line. That's a huge concern as we, again, try to solve this problem.
It's terribly huge. I mean, let's think the driver shortage thing's been going on for like 40
Forever.
years.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, one stupid thing like that came out, and it's taken, almost 40 years. And I agree. I think it's pretty much, there's only one organization out there now that keeps doubling down on it, the ATA.
You have lawmakers now pushing back against
but even
the
lawmakers and FMCSA, everybody's realizing, I mean, there's plenty of studies to show that that isn't true either. But yeah, this can do a lot of damage. And the real damage, if we want to be honest, where it really falls into, is on the trucker. I mean, one thing about this piece we know, it wasn't done to enhance truckers or to help truckers in any way that I can see, because if you're some trucker at 10 o'clock at night trying to find a place to park, you see that somebody's putting out that there's no truck parking shortage and how all this stuff that they put, that would pretty much make you pretty mad and think, what planet are you on?
Yep.
But I mean, it affects the trucker. It affects everybody out here, because it just continues the inefficiency of our supply chain, because, as we know, truckers, from surveys that are, I guess we'd say, much more accurate, truckers shut down on average an hour earlier a day. They find a safe place, or they don't finish their day. So they leave hours on the table. They leave miles out there that they didn't get to run, and with freight, which means whenever that happens, which it happens not only for this, but for other things, detention, all these things, is we need more trucks. And that puts more trucks out there, which means we need more parking, which creates more congestion, more trucks. It's the ever-ending cycle. You're correct. And that's what stuff like this, when this happens, we're trying to fix these problems, because I firmly believe we don't need as many trucks or drivers or everything as we have out there, just because if we just were more efficient. And when it comes to detention time, truck parking, those are the two leading efficiency things out there that we leave so many hours and miles on the tables that drivers could be getting, which would definitely reduce the number of trucks that we need on the highway, would definitely reduce the number of parking places we need on the highway. And this parking problem is so big now. One spot for every 11 trucks. Safe spot.
Yep.
Safe spot. It's become such a massive problem, where Truck Parking Club, in my opinion, really, really messed this up. And we've said this all along the way. They act like their model, what they want to do, and companies like them, that's the answer to this problem. Okay, there's no one answer to fixing this problem. We have a bill on Capitol Hill, the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, that this could derail. We don't think that's the end-all, be-all of this problem either. It's going to take our bill. It's going to take state and local. It's going to take the FMCSA grants that are going out there. It's going to take truck parking club and company and other pay for people. Yep. It's going to take city planners, state planners going into there and finding ground that they have, whether in talking to their shippers, their receivers that are in their districts about opening up their lots and allowing truckers to stay there. It's going to take more truck stops expansion. It's going to take everybody to fix a problem this massive. And to try to do a survey and make it sound like we're the end-all, be-all, all we need to do is come up with some technology fix to connect trucks to spaces, problem solved, we can move on to the next. That is just so short-sighted and so narrow-minded. It blows my mind.
Yeah. Is there a way to frame this conversation to where, I suppose, is there a way that Truck Parking Club, I should say, could have framed this report that would have kind of said what you're saying there, Louis. I mean, there is obviously a way they could have framed it, but I'm just trying to think of the different ways in which different roads they could have taken as a result of this report. And there are a number of them. They took this one that we don't understand, but they could have come out and said there are so many inefficiencies, or there are good things in the report essentially pointing out the problems, right?
Yeah, again, it acknowledges a shortage, and that, even says, I mean, I can't verify these numbers, but I think they said like there's a shortage, like a deficit of about like 1.7 million spots. I don't know if you can't verify that, but let's just say it's off by 10 or 15%. That's still a lot of trucks parking. So that's a significant shortage, and that's something we all agree on, and that study kind of does highlight. And so there's some stuff in there that I don't think that anyone questions. It's just the stuff that is questionable. The 23.4 million spots on private lots. We can't verify that. Are those safe spots? The thing is, you look at, different, it's not just Truck Parking Club, but other parking apps. A lot of these spots, it's just like a gravel lot.
Yeah. Or are they efficient in inefficient areas?
Are they in inefficient areas, And the other thing we're forgetting about is the human behind the wheel here. So when we're looking for parking spaces, I don't think the human being behind that wheel wants just a spot to rest.
Right.
They need restrooms and showers and food, things that traditional truck stops can offer. Rest areas can give you a lot of that too. But a lot of these, pop up, pay to play spots don't offer any of that. So we're losing the humanity, the literal humanity behind the trucking operations here. And so, but to get back to your question though, like how can you have framed this and whatever, yes, there are spots that are not being used that could otherwise be used. And yes, the private sector has the ability to unlock some of those. But as Louis pointed out, it is just a small part of a very large equation to solve this problem here. And the way that's being phrased it kind of just sounds like, it's like, no, this is how we do it. This is how we solve the problem. It's like, you let us tap into all these millions of parking spaces, boom, problem solved. Yeah, it doesn't work like that because, again, Louis pointed out, the trucking industry has been telling shippers to open up their lots for decades, and they haven't.
Stop treating them like second-class citizens.
Exactly right. And so a private, someone who's been in this space for 3 years now, they're not going to come in and shippers will be like, oh, well, since you praise it like that, we'll just stop doing what we've been doing for decades.
Sure.
There's a lot of logistics problems with that.
The only thing I would say on that is, I think there are shippers and receivers, if they can figure out how to monetize it.
Oh, yeah.
And, and that's the only thing. But I think that's a slippery slope because, I mean, it's one thing to charge if you've got a lot or a garage or whatever. Even if you're a truck stop, I'm not advocating for this at all. Yep. But if they want to charge it, that's their thing. But if you're going to have to start paying your shipper and your receiver
that's a no-go.
To come in there and park, that's a
non-starter.
Big time. But I know that there's probably shippers and receivers
who are already thinking about it.
Maybe this is a good idea, and we don't really have to do it. I mean, let's face the facts. Most of your big shippers and receivers, they move their shipping and stuff into 3PL networks and stuff like that. They don't even have traffic departments anymore. Somebody else does it for them.
Yeah.
And just think how easy it would be if you're a Walmart distribution center and you got 100 spots out there and a company can come in here and set up a trucking Airbnb per se, and now you can sleep at this Walmart distribution center for $25, or while we take 8 hours to unload your trailer.
You just scared the daylights out because once that horse is out of the barn,
oh boy,
everybody's going to do that.
And again, there's a lot of good shippers and receivers, but there's a lot of shippers and receivers that wouldn't bat an eye to do something.
And of course, the big problem with that is who's paying for it. It's the driver.
And the driver.
Companies aren't going to.
They're not footing the bill.
Are footing that bill. So for company drivers, they're screwed.
Yeah, and we did a study a year ago, I think. On that, our foundation, and over 50% of company drivers are never reimbursed for their parking.
Yeah.
It's
just another tax.
The companies out there, hats off to them for doing it, and good for them, and they should, and love to talk to them and promote them for doing such good things like that. But there's a lot of companies out there, they're not paying. And when you're a trucker, making $600-$700 a week after taxes, and you got a family to feed. Now you got to shout another $20-$30 a night for a place to park, and for company drivers, they can't even get that back in their taxes. That's just gone.
Yeah.
At least an owner operator, for what it's worth, you can claim it on your taxes and get some back that way. But if you're an employee driver, that's just money out window. And again, to Tyson's point, as a trucker, bathroom, showers, and all those things are important, and I'm not saying that they're not. And you'd rather have places that do have them. But if it gets you close and you can do without, because you still got truck stops. But if I got to pay to park somewhere, now that becomes,
You better be getting something for your money other than a spot.
Yeah, I would at least like to have a freaking bathroom if I'm paying. And I'd like to know that I'm going to, in a good, safe neighborhood, just not anywhere.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Feels a bit helpless.
Well, in my opinion, and in OOIDA's opinion, where we need to go from here is this. I think the truck parking club on this deal needs to retract all these things. They need to get rid of all this clickbait bullshit that they had out there on Facebook and other social media platforms. Clean it up. I think they need to go back and reevaluate their study and their research and present it in an honest, straightforward manner of how it was. Maybe get some more data. I mean, part of me wonders why they even did it, because we know there's a million studies out there already about parking and shortages. We don't really need any more studies, in my opinion. What we need is to be put in payment. But again, they had their reasons. They're a private company. They're a for-profit organization. I feel this was done for investment, whether it's getting more spaces or investors to invest in their company. This wasn't done for truckers.
No.
At all.
I think you're
Let's
spot
just be
on.
clear.
Yeah.
So, but retract it, put it out correct, put that information out correctly, put it out for truckers and pro truckers, and help build their business by being a little bit friendlier to truckers in that sense, and also help move the needle on Capitol Hill and other places in our industry. The only way our industry gets better if all players in our industry try to work together to make it better. And this is not making it work better, but put that stuff out correctly and promote it correctly.
And we're back. When we left you, we were talking with Louis Pugh, Executive Vice President of OIDA, and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine about that truck parking club study. And I'll use study in quotes here. Let's pick it right back up with the two of them to kind of go over what else we learned. This conversation, every time something like this comes up, it always reminds me of just how difficult it can be out there for folks. Because in this conversation, we've talked about the lack of truck parking. We've talked about, in one way or another, inefficiencies in the supply chain, restroom access, driver retention. It's all connected when we talk about these things, these frustrations that truck drivers have to deal with on an everyday basis. And then when a report, I think that's why it has ginned up such an emotional response from a number of people, is that when you see a report like this, again, that flies in the face of what they are dealing with on a everyday basis, it's insulting and it is frustrating that we have this thing that says, oh no, this isn't a problem actually, but give us some money and we'll solve this part of it. It just strikes me that it's all tied together in one way or another.
The unfortunate truth, and it's just totally unfortunate, it's been this way forever in my, it is that truckers get treated worse than if you have a pet in your car. And that's pretty damn sad. There's states out there with idling rules and all these different things, for truckers and all this stuff. If you did that to an animal, you'd go to jail.
You'd have the cops called on you.
Yeah, you'd get the cops called. But for a trucker, who cares if he can't idle his truck? Who cares if he doesn't have a place to park? Who cares if he doesn't have a bathroom or proper facilities? Who cares? And, I've been in hearings. I've sat on hearings in the U.S. Senate where they were more worried about where to stop and give livestock a break, which, hey, I got cows and I understand they appreciate their livestock.
Yeah.
but nobody ever even talked about what about the trucker?
Yeah, the human being.
What about the guy on it?
That's
Because
yeah.
I try to remind people all the time. There's a human being behind that wheel of that truck.
Yeah.
All people see is that great big truck, and whether they're intimidated, don't like it, it's going slow, whatever their problem with it, they forget there's a human being in there just like them, a person with a family who just wants to do their job, bring you the things you need, and go home.
Yeah. If we're looking for good to come out of this, the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, this is the time more than any to reach out to your representative and get them on board with this, because we always talk about it, this would not solve the truck parking crisis, but it would go a long way towards solving a lot of the problems that are part of the bigger puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about next steps. I mean, just continue to do what we have been doing, which is, continue to reach out to, lawmakers and policymakers, and not just at the federal and state level. Louis kind of alluded to this. It's very important, probably even more important at the local level, because these are the people who are approving of zoning laws and stuff like that, that determine whether or not they can use any money that they could have access to do that. So, yes, certainly engage with governments at all levels. And you mentioned the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. You go to fightingfortruckers.com. You definitely, have a form to, reach out to your lawmakers there. I mean, just continue to advocate for more truck parking, for government funding at truck parking. And again, I can't emphasize enough the local level, because, the parking zone column that I write for every magazine issue, I'm constantly reporting on the NIMBY crowd, right? And that's because they're just the loudest, most vocal ones who are not showing up at these, these city council meetings, or people who are for these truck stops, which I know there are many. So again, engage. Get involved. It goes a long way. This Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act has gained more steam each time it is reintroduced. And it's getting to a point to where it's going to be hard to ignore. I mean, it's almost at a 50-50 split, Democrats and Republicans. I mean, it's big. We all agree on this issue. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. The entire industry, minus one person now, we all agree, and we don't agree on a lot in this industry, but we all agree that truck parking is an absolute problem. Yeah.
And you're right, Tyson, and that's where truckers fall short. And I did when I was a trucker too. We don't worry about things in our local area because it doesn't affect us in our local area. We already have a parking place or no. It's very important as a local trucker, because trucking is a brother or sisterhood, however you want to look at it. You need to go to your local area to help the trucker that's 2 states away, and the trucker 2 states away needs to go to his local and stand up. Because you're right, when you go to these state things and municipal things, there's nobody there. And I know it's hard as a trucker, but that's things. But the one thing you can do, no matter where you are in the country or what time you are in the country, is you can call your lawmaker, you can send them a message. And we make it very simple. You can go to fightingfortruckers.com. If truckers would take the time to message their lawmakers like they did to write comments for FMCSA, which takes much longer time to do comments than to just message your lawmaker, we could have truck parking in no time. If truckers would all just start calling their lawmaker and say, pass the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act now. This is what I need. That's all. A quick 2-minute phone call or a quick 2 minutes on Fighting for Truckers saying a message. You would be amazed how fast we could get this done. And that's what truckers need to do.
Well, we talked to Congressman Josh Prakeen recently, and he said that very thing, that he wants to hear from constituents. He wants to hear from truck drivers, and other lawmakers do too, about what they're seeing out there, what they're dealing with. And these lawmakers have so much going on, they can't pay attention to every issue, and they appreciate hearing from people who can kind of explain it in terms that they can understand.
And they're hearing a million things about a million different things from a million different people. And there's plenty of people out there talking against you. I challenge every trucker out there. That 50 minutes that you shut down early in the evening after you can't find a place to park, right there is your perfect time to send a message to your lawmaker and said, I had to shut down and I lost an hour's worth of work today or 2 hours or whatever because there's no safe place for me to park. You need to fix this now. Truck parking safe. That quick, and it is done. And you're right. If you don't contact your lawmakers and don't tell them you have a problem, I hate to say it, but you ain't got nothing to bitch about. You can't. If you can either get in and try to help fight this problem, or just deal with it.
And you know who has their ear? It's the lobbyists that are going in there with their money and
Oh, yeah.
telling them what their big money donors want them to
And
hear.
in truck parking, as I say, it's not sexy.
I disagree, Louis.
Lawmakers aren't out there. Lawmakers like big things where they can cut ribbons and get all this fanfare and more money. That's not what they're going to get from truck parking. Unfortunately, they should. There's no reason they should, but that's not what. And that's
It's a new campaign. Truck parking is sexy.
Yes.
Can we
That would
start
be a
something?
goal.
Let's go with it.
Can we start?
Make truck parking sexy again.
Yeah.
There you go. Who's going
to
to be the poster boy? Louis?
It'd be Lou. Yeah.
Louis? Yeah.
100%.
All right.
A lot of sexy.
We'll get some sexy clothes on Louis. We'll get him out in a truck parking facility. All right. I like it. We'll get working on that. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, again, I'm just going to emphasize that the trucking industry just, persist, keep doing what we're doing. And as far as, how we solve this problem, it's a holistic approach. Everyone's going to have to be involved here. It's going to be public sector, private sector. Everyone's involved. No one's going to be the magic, the silver bullet and all that. We really need to put that in perspective. And when it comes to certain things like research, again, make sure you do your reading, really kind of just, do your due diligence here. But at the end of the day, we do have a parking shortage, and, we need to kind of like band together to help solve that problem.
Yeah. Louis?
It's highway bill time. There's no time better than right now to be contacting your lawmaker about truck parking and other things that affect you in your day-to-day business as well. But this is the time. We're on, as I say, it's 5-yard line and 4 downs with goal to go. Now's the time. Pick up your phones. Go to Fighting for Truckers. Reach out to your lawmakers. As Tyson says, read surveys, don't believe everything you read, and probably people that are trying to profit on your problems probably don't always have your best interest at heart. So, and finally, join OOIDA because we're stronger together than we are separate. And, if you're hearing this and listening to this, call our membership. We'll give you $10 off your annual, but join OOIDA, join the fight. And we appreciate everything you do out there, truckers. Thank you so much.
I was going to say, let's make sure we thank the truck drivers. Louis, that's your thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we do. Again, thank you for everything you're doing out there, keeping America moving. And in the face of all this stuff that we're talking about, to Tyson's point, if we band together and work together on these issues, we'll get there. It's going to take some work, but we'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. Louis Pugh, Tyson Fisher, we appreciate it.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back right after this.
At TruckStop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on TruckStop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy when your truck on a CAT scale.
Howe's products provide your diesel with total performance and protection. Use Diesel Defender for a full system cleaning. Start treatment early with Diesel Treat to prevent gelling all season and protect yourself from winter emergencies with Diesel Lifeline. Stay moving with Howe's.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Welcome back. Scott, it's always nice to see OOIDA members doing things to try and improve the industry.
Yes.
Agree. Yes. Natasha Cruz Sanchez, an OOIDA member, recently filed a petition to establish English proficiency as a formal endorsement. We've got her on the line now. Natasha, this has been a hot topic as of late. I'm curious, how did this idea come around and why did you decide to do this?
Yeah, so English is my second language, and I feel like I am very, I'm the best person to speak from that point of view, right? I do come from Puerto Rico, and I think that education at all forms is very important. And one of the cultural shocks that I got when I came to the United States was the amount of illiterate adults that are here. So to me, that was a little bit concerning. And when you look at data, you see that 54% of adults have a literacy below sixth grade level. So let's start with that. And I think that if you have a test that can prove that you know will be good, but language alone is not the issue. We have a bigger issue. So I was like, okay, coming to U.S., I see this issue. How can we make sure that we can get qualified drivers, you know? So having free time because of my injury, I started digging deeper into this, and I talked to my collaborators. All of them are truck drivers for over 5 years or so. And I told them, like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And they're like, well, we agree with the law. We just don't agree with how it has been enforced. And I'm like, yep, me too. So we decided to just work together and make something that can make sense to everybody. The way we see it, do you know what's the ASVAB when you want to join the military? It's like an admission test, the same way you take the MCAT for medical school, the same way you take the GRE for grad school. So why don't we address this issue from the very beginning instead of trying to put a temporary fix that clearly is not working?
Did this idea come to you before all of the latest kind of, all the conversations and debates that are going on over the past few months? Did it come to you before that, or did those conversations kind of, I guess, lead you down this path?
This idea honestly came when I started trucking school. I have a bachelor's degree, and I'm a nerd. So when I go to trucking school, I see myself like, oh my gosh, like, people don't understand what they're reading. So there's a problem there. And me and my friends were always very opinionated, and we constantly talk. That's how you keep yourself awake while trucking. So at that time, I was just calling them, talking to them, and we always noticed something was off, but we didn't take too much time to really think about it. And then when all this movement of like the English language proficiency comes up, we're like, well, English alone is not the issue. It's the way, we're letting drivers like slip through the cracks. Like, who is in charge of these people, right? Somebody's not doing their job. If you are in a trucking school and you see a student, but they're not proficient, not only in language, but they're not understanding something, it's your responsibility as an instructor to stop that, right? And address the problem. Like, hey, take a corrective action. What can we do? What can we, how can we make this student be qualified for this? But unfortunately, we have a lot of that in the United States, and we unfortunately are prioritizing profit over safety.
Yeah, I think that's totally right.
Now, a lot of people in your case, who has a strong opinion about this might just take to Facebook and rant. The fact that you, filed a petition and went through this process, talk to me about, that and then what the process was like.
Well, I do agree. We have a lot of people on social media that love to express themselves. But at the end of the day, you need to take action. I'm the type of person that if you see something, say something. So when I reach out to my friends and I'm like, hey, what if we have an endorsement? And they're like, wait, that sounds actually pretty good. And I'm like, it does, but this already exists. So when I was looking for information about it, under the FMCSA, the DOT, you have the Federal Aviation Administration, and they have this. Back in 2008, they have an endorsement, and they gave pilots 1 year transition period. And I'm like, well, we can use this as a model and implement it in trucking. And they're like, you know what? That seems like a good idea. So I started writing without any idea that this was going to turn into something bigger. And then I reached out to OIDA. They responded. That first draft was not federally correct, meaning like it didn't have a federal format.
Yeah, it didn't have the,
They're like, hey.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, this is actually pretty good. It makes sense. But it needs to have a federal format. So since May or June, we've been exchanging emails with some corrections, editing, and stuff like that. And finally, when I was given the green light, like, hey, it's ready for submission. Okay, cool. Let's do it. So the process has been very interesting. It has been a learning process. All of my collaborators are currently over-the-road truck drivers. So because I'm not driving, I'm able to write down whatever they want to add, whatever they want to feel like is important. So I being that person, putting their thoughts into this document. So it's very interesting to see that even though they're working, I reach out and I'm like, hey, can you hop in a call real quick? So we get into a conference call. I discuss everything that I've been writing with them. They're like, hey, this is good, this is not. And we've been going from there because all of us believe that going on Facebook is not going to resolve anything. It's just creating noise.
This has a lot of promise, and I think it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. And you mentioned it briefly there because there is kind of a tie-in with what the Federal Aviation Administration requires. Can you walk us through exactly just what this would look like for someone, really anybody, who's getting their CDL, right? They would have to go through a process to essentially get an endorsement like they would for other things. Kind of just explain for us again, like what this would look like if your plan were the plan, I suppose.
The way I see it, they have the English language proficiency test at roadside. To me, if we take exactly what they do at roadside, but we just change the setting, have a person at the DMV facility doing exactly the same. Hey, talk to me, read this. Okay, you can understand this, cool, then you can take the CLP. I feel like when you have a tired trucker, hasn't showered, hasn't eaten anything, they're on their way home, maybe they're on their way to their kid's birthday, and then you get pulled into a weigh station, it's very subjective.
Yeah.
So what if we just take that stress out and we tell you from the very beginning, like, hey, you know what? In order to get a CDL, you got to take the ELP test. Okay, go schedule yourself. Take a test exactly the same way has been, administered at the roadside. You have this person, hey, thank you, welcome in. Let's have a conversation like you and me are having right now.
Yeah.
The person understand that this person is good to go. Cool. Now you can take your CLP. But changing the setting will change the narrative.
Well, I was going to say, this would happen in a place where the person's already there, right, to get their CDL and do all the things. That was one of the questions I had, and I know there's maybe some concern out there or a little pushback in terms of like financial, a financial burden or a time burden of having to go to a certain place. If you're an English speaker already, to sit down and actually take a test would be, it feels kind of burdensome. But what you're saying there would be the same thing that's happening at roadside. Just a simple, hey, this person can converse with me. They're understanding what I'm saying. I'm understanding what they're saying. They're good to go. Simple as that.
Right. Yeah, that's the way I see it, and I think it's the best way. Another thing I would like to say about that is people need to understand education is everything. And if you don't think that paying $10 for an endorsement is worth of your money or time, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is going to add $300 to your CDL. No, like when you look at the fees, endorsement fees go from $10 to $50. We spend more on a shower at the truck stop or food. So if having this endorsement will protect your license and will be making this process easier, because I'm pretty sure if I get pulled over by a DOT officer and they see my license, how many minutes or hours I took away from that, Like he's going to be there for 1 hour, 2 hours. I see the license, ELP, okay, you're good to go. No questions asked, no nothing. So this will be something that will be beneficial for everybody. And as a minority person, Puerto Rican, I have an accent when I speak. I know the language, and it will be very sad that, let's say I get pulled over somewhere that they don't understand my accent and I'm trying to communicate, like, how much is enough for you?
I'm curious, you'd mentioned that, this has gotten all over the internet. What has the feedback been like? Positive? Has there been negative feedback?
Yeah.
I've seen both. It's very interesting. I think a lot of people fail to understand how this will look like. So they are thinking, oh my gosh, another test, another regulation. Well, if you're born and raised in U.S. and English is your first language, why are you scared? English is my second language, and I'm not scared. So let's start with that. Second, if you are a minority like me, don't you think it will be better to have more endorsements, certifications? You're going to be more qualified. You're going to be an asset. You're going to bring value to the company that you're working for, even if it's your own company as an owner-operator. So some people say, well, no, I don't want more testing. Some others say, you know what, actually, this makes sense. Others say, well, this has been around for a long time. Yeah, it has been a long time, since 1936, but there's no test. So another person said that they agree with it and that they should only offer English testing, which is true. Some states offer you to take the ELP in Spanish. So I see different opinions, and that's okay. We all are entitled to our own opinion, but at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. And we have an illiteracy problem in the United States. And we also, I want to share with you this because I was reading about it. So the annual economic cost for motor vehicle fatalities is roughly $433 billion. That's a lot. And that involves trucking too, because, of course, for each fatality, that costs around $10 to $11 million. However, when you look into the numbers of literacy problems, you know how much it costs the United States? $2.2 trillion per year.
Wow.
So
that's
if you
a lot
start
of money.
analyzing, it's 408 higher, like 408 higher than the actual crashes. And then I started digging into this issue, the literacy problem. So we have that New Mexico has a state with the lowest child literacy rate. Those kids are going to grow up and they're going to turn into adults. That's concerning. And then we also have California as the lowest adult literacy rate. You remember that Mr. Shandoffy gave California and New Mexico some time to work on some stuff, some corrective action. So to me, it's not a coincidence that we have literacy problems in the same states that got threatened to suspend funding. I don't think people have been taking the time to really sit down and understand that this is beyond language. This is education. And the system needs some work for sure. So it's natural to feel a certain way, story or incidents, but feelings alone, they won't make policy. Data exists. And I think if we use that data wisely, we definitely can make safer decisions by going directly to the systemic root causes.
Well, and you nailed the point right there. It's all about safety. That's what this ultimately comes down to at the end of the day with all of this. And I commend you, Ashley commends you for actually taking action on this. Again,
Not
it's
just
so easy
complaining on Facebook.
Yeah, it's so easy to get on Facebook and complain about things. And, that there's a place for that, obviously.
But no, this is
you taking action and doing something, really commend you on that. And we appreciate your time so much. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate your time and good luck with this. And we'll definitely keep an eye on how things go.
We'll be following.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you guys are amazing.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks. Have
Take
a good
care.
day.
Drive safe out there.
Thank you.
That was an OIDA member, Natasha Cruz Sanchez. It always impresses me when people, like I said,
action.
Don't take to social media. They actually take action.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be following that, and we'll have more on it when anything happens with it.
Yes.
We'll talk to you next time right here on Trucking with OIDA. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people that includes Jim Fetzer, Keegan White, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
Got thoughts? We'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave us a message. Or you can send us an email to podcast@ooida.com and we might include it on the show.